There comes a time in sports when someone makes history. And, as fans, we like to talk about statistics, we like to talk about stats, analytics, and all that kind of stuff. And we basically get into, Tom Brady, 7 Super Bowls, or Randy Moss for him having, so many completions, and Jerry Rice for having, so many yards, and all these different players being in the Hall of Fame, and TJ Watt, so many sacks, and these different things, people who break records all the time. Well, recently, Mr. Tyrod Taylor actually broke a record, in which it's an interesting one because it's a 99-year-old record, and nobody really understood it or seen it coming. So we're going to go ahead and get into this one and basically go over some Giants history, Tyrod Taylor, and of course, how I feel about Tyrod making this history. So here we go. So obviously the Giants franchise has been around since 1925, right? The franchise has been around for about 99 years now. They have 4 Super Bowl championships, two at Tom Brady's demise. This is also the home to Hall of Famers such as Lawrence Taylor, great coaches like Bill Parcells and Tom Coughlin, two of my favorites, who are definitely the best coaches in their era. Also, as much as I don't consider the Giants to be a real New York team, I do respect the Giants as a franchise. They have a great history. They have a great story. And I literally enjoy calling them. I love calling their games, when we do during prime time. It's always a wonderful thing. But now we get into Tyrod Taylor, right? We get into Tyrod Taylor and basically him coming over from the Chargers. And some of you may remember or may not remember that he had the issue as far as when his lung was punctured and he was unable to play for a long time. And some people didn't think that he was actually going, to be able to play anymore. Well, he bounced back, and then obviously he ended up here with the Giants. So, getting into the Giants' history as far as with the quarterbacks, the reason why we're having this conversation is because Tyrod Taylor is basically the first black or African American player to win a game, regular season game with the Giants. He did this one against the Commanders. And the reason why it's interesting because the only first black quarterback to start before him was Geno Smith, who started behind Eli when he didn't play in the Raiders game back in 2017. So the reason why we're getting into this today is because I made a post on Facebook and I really just wanted to highlight, the fact of history, right? Because if we try to get rid of history and we try to take away different stats and different things that happen, it not only discredits the person, but it discredits us from having the knowledge and the understanding as far as, how these things happen. And why they happen and who they happen to and whether or not they should be celebrated for that specific individual. Whether or not you believe in it, whether or not you want to say that it's race baiting, whether or not you want to have a specific issue with this topic, I do think that it is very important to understand it, to hear about it, to talk about it. And we're going to get into it. We're also going to get into some of the comments that was left on the Facebook post that I made that I thought was very interesting. It's good stuff to talk about. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and get into the story. Tyrod Taylor becomes the first black quarterback to ever win a game for the Giants. The story was published 2 days ago on the 25th. It says the New York Giants entered into the NFL in 1925. Before Sunday, no black quarterback had ever won a game for the Giants. Tyrod Taylor, a 34-year-old veteran who has played for multiple teams over the years, became the first with a 14-7 victory over the Commanders. In quote, "It means a lot," Taylor said Wednesday via Pat Leonard of the New York Daily News. "I didn't know that going into it. I mean, it's history. Proud to be a part of it. Ultimately, I'm proud of the guys and the way they competed this past week. Something to build off of. There's a lot of positive from that game. I look forward to continuing to keep, if given the opportunity, competing with the guys on Sundays and going out there and striving for a win," unquote. He's only the second black quarterback to start a game for the Giants. Geno Smith was the first back in 2017 during Eli Manning's short-lived benching. Taylor has started 2 games in place of Daniel Jones, who currently has a neck injury. On Wednesday, coach Brian Dable reiterated that Jones will reclaim the starting job when healthy. Jones was limited in practice on Wednesday. The 2-5 Giants host the 3-3 Jets on Sunday. Taylor now has 54 career starts. His record is 27, 26, and 1. So listen, obviously, I did put this up here. So listen, obviously I did put this up. So listen, obviously I did put this up on Facebook, right? I wanted to just highlight this fact, showcase this fact. Obviously, you guys see that I posted it up here. I just said that this is actually a wild fact, not a Super Bowl, but a game, right? Goes on to say Tyrod Taylor first, African American quarterback to win a game for the Giants. So then we start getting into the comments. And I like looking at the comments. I like engaging with the people, right? It's all good stuff to talk about. I thought that I was putting up, a positive post, something simple, something to just highlight something significant that this man has done, just like I do with any other player or when we're talking about stats or wins or anything else. But let's go ahead and get into some of the comments. Shout out to Isaac, says, for a team as old as the New York Giants, this is astounding. Their first quarterback was Geno Smith in 2017. Jeffrey goes in to say Jones is finished. Joe says, kind of funny, the Bears back up. Didn't get that kind of recognition. Laugh out loud. Go figure. Lance says, took a hot minute. 99 years. Mark Pick says, Eyes be the first quarterback to wins for the New Yorks. All right, we'll take a joke, some laughter, maybe if you consider that kind of thing funny. Okay. Randolph Green says, yes, keep rolling. James Taylor says, good news. This should be a 3-day news segment come draft time. Serg says, why did it take 100 years? Okay, in other news, his team still blows. But then let's keep going. And Cody says, hey, let's go Hokies. Shout out to Virginia Tech. The only people who care about this are racist. Why pander to them? That's a question. I didn't think I was pandering to anybody. I thought I was just making a post. I thought I was just sharing some relevant information that is a part of our history, which is a fact. Mark says, who names their kid Tyrod? Is he a car part? John Beck says, I would have thought Geno would have won one. I do as well, right? We're kind of seeing Geno get into his own, get into his prime now with the Seahawks. Maybe a little bit past his prime. But yeah, I mean, obviously it takes time to develop, longer than others for certain quarterbacks, and Geno's been doing well with the Seahawks, so hopefully we'll see what happens moving forward. Doug says, big effing deal. Josh Tanner says, when it comes down to it, why does race have to be brought into it? He shows that he could have talent with repeated starts and given the time to learn the offense. Ever since the concussions, he had to bounce around the league just to get a chance. So, I mean, we'll talk about the first part of it. When it comes down to why does race have to be brought into it, once again, race is not being brought into it specifically to make someone feel lesser than what they are because this person got an achievement for it, or this historical fact was brought up to put anybody down because it actually happened. I think we have to look at the fact that this situation happened. This is history. The man made history, and it's just a stat. When you take it one step further and you make it more than what it is, that's what creates the issue. But some people don't seem to get that. But we'll keep going. Jeffrey says that they probably won't keep this in the record books. Why not? Jake says, too much rate bait in America. Come to Canada, where everyone is looked at equally. Really? Are we sure about that? I've been over to Canada. I visited a lot, and stuff happens over there as well. Get Funked says, out come the race hustlers. How are we hustling race by just putting up a simple stat? Simple fact. John says, wow, that's amazing. Golden Hand says, Jay, you need Tyrod back since Josh Allen back to being Brock Osweiler. Shout out to you, Golden Hand. I try to give those Dolphins the benefit of the doubt. Didn't work. Khalil Bell says, I can't remember the Giants have a black quarterback ever. And then it says it's amazing the amount that are offended by this. So I just got to say, it's really interesting. Nicholas gets into this saying, imagine being highlighted for your race, not your skill. Very sad. I would assume that his skill is the reason why they won, and just this fact at the end of it being brought up doesn't discredit that at all. Next up says, Joe says, if I remember correctly, the black delegation traded Steve Harvey for Eli Manning a few years back. That renders this a mute conversation. And then last but not least, we got Jay Ferrari, who says, who cares about race is oversaturated. Okay. So you know, this is one of the things that we'll get into when we have these kind of, tough conversations and we go back and forth about different things and how people feel about, you know, race and having these, sensitive conversations when it comes to the game. Listen, at the end of the day, if there's ever going to be a fact about sports in regards to anybody, whether they're black, white, Asian, Native American. In fact, someone had mentioned something about Sam Bradford and how nobody ever talked about him. And I had to basically check them on that because there was just a story about Sam Bradford being inducted into the Native American Hall of Fame for athletics. So make sure that you understand that this is not out to hurt you. History being made should be history mentioned. And that's what I'm going to leave it at. And if you feel offended by it, if you feel upset by it, if it bothers you, then just skip it. Don't pay attention to history. Don't know it. You may want to forget about it. You may want other people to forget about it, but we're not going to do it. We're going to talk about everything. We're not going to leave things out to appease others just to make them feel better about themselves because it's just history. And at the end of the day, it's just a fact. See you guys in the next one. Peace out.